to sit on tenterhooks. And so the latest announcement by the PURC that the Electricity Company of Ghana is requesting for some 224% in tariffs and some 280 by the Ghana Water Company Limited has got people talking. Why do we have to pay more? What do we get in return? And do we need to continue on this path? Hello, good evening, and welcome to Agenda. My name is Beatrice Adu, and tonight we want to go into the request by the utility service providers, really, on what they are asking for, on what needs to be done moving forward. My name is Beatrice Adu. Remember that we're streaming live on 3FM 92.7. Send your comments to us and we'll read them back to you. I do have on the panel with me Dr. Ni Dakwa Asante. He's former commissioner at the PURC and also energy consultant. Good evening to you, Doc. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Of course, from the former, we go to the current man who is occupying that position, Dr. Shafiq Suleiman. He's the executive secretary of the PURC. Doc, it's great to have you in studio as well.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening to you. Of course, on my left side, we have Mr. Kwame Jantwa. He's energy expert and chairman of the Energy Committee Association of Ghana Industries, AGI. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you as well for joining us.
Good evening. It's energy sector.
Energy sector. Thank you very much. Of course, we'll be joined by video call very shortly as well by Dr. George Domfe. He is a development economist. Doc, if you can hear us and you've joined us, good evening to you. Okay, he'll be joining us very shortly. Thank you once again for joining us on Agenda tonight. And I want to start with you, Dr. Suleiman. You're with the PURC Executive Secretary. And Ghanaians say that they are tired of paying more tariffs, so they should not be paying for the inefficiencies of utility providers. What's your justification for the latest announcement you gave us?
Okay, thank you very much, Beatrice. And good evening to Ghanaians and good evening to my fellow panelists as well. Yes, I think, as you know, Ghanaians, or PURC, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, started a multi-year tariff order, what we call MITO. And we, first of all, started at the beginning of the year by receiving what we call investment proposals from the various utilities, of which we held the first ever investment hearing with the various utilities at PURC and at ALISA to allow them to actually present to us their various investment projects or projects that they want to undertake for the Commission to consider for the MITO. And we did that. We actually approved some key investment projects for them. And then after that, in the process of the MITO, they needed to also submit or present to us their tariff proposals. So it's actually the tariff proposals that they submitted recently, of which we started the stakeholder engagement, of which we are hearing most of the media outcry. So we started with the CSOs last Monday, 8th September, and the next day, 9th, we had the encounter with the media. So the utilities made tariff proposals to the Commission. So the tariff proposals are more or less, they are telling us that if the tariffs are adjusted to this level, that's when they would be able to break even and make some margins for themselves. So,
Doc, let's take it one by one. You're saying that you talked about investment proposals that they submitted,
yes,
as well as tariffs.
So they submitted investment proposals. We considered them, various projects that they think they would undertake to lead to what we call quality of service improvement within the provision of the utilities. We considered all those projects. And then we approve, so we classified the projects into short-term, medium-term, and long-term, and then we also classified them into critical projects. So we selected the projects and we indicated back to them that these projects are accepted. So we call something called regulated asset base. So these are the projects we use to develop or set the regulated asset base. We send it back to them. They capture those regulated asset base in their project or their tariffs, and then they arrive at a particular tariff that if we grant them, the PURC grants them, or the Ghanaian consumer grants them, they'll be able to recover the cost of those projects throughout.
Okay, so I think you have indirectly answered my question partially. You're saying that the tariff adjustments that they have asked for, they eventually, if they are granted, they will go into those projects that they submitted to you earlier?
Actually, so they've made tariff proposals based on the investment projects that they've submitted to us.
Doc, are you able to share with us the proposals, the ones particularly you call critical?
Yes.
The reason you found it necessary to present these proposals to us?
So what PURC does is actually to provide a platform for the utilities to communicate to the Ghanaian consumer those various projects. And I think that's what we started with from last Monday. So we create a platform for the utilities themselves to tell the Ghanaian consumer that these are the various projects that I want tariffs to be adjusted for me to be able to invest in to improve quality of service for the Ghanaian consumer.
That's excellent. I just want you to mention to us, because you mentioned that you put them in various categories.
Yes.
Critical, long-term, medium-term, short-term.
Yes.
So which ones did you consider critical? The reason, again, you thought that it was necessary to present these proposals to us?
So as I said, there are about 7 utilities that presented their investments, a lot of them. Like for instance, Gridco has submitted over 18 projects, and we considered most of them. The main one is the Eastern Corridor, or Eastern Corridor electrification, not great extension or great service improvement. The transmission line within the Eastern Corridor has been giving a lot of low current to communities around OT. Salaga, for instance, it is being stated that in communities like Salaga, it is a luxury for them to actually get ice block. And it is extremely difficult for them to actually even on a fan, not to talk of owning any generator to even run any agro-processing activity. So what Gridco submitted to the PURC is actually for us to consider this project, for them to be able to, in their tariff proposal, for them to be able to raise the needed amount of money through the tariff to invest in such a project. So
I'll be going to the rest of the panel, but again, you talk about these projects, and we do know that the service providers have obsolete equipment, for instance, that they need to change. But the question which I asked earlier was that Ghanaians do not feel that they should be paying for the inefficiencies of these service providers or utility providers, because if they were efficient enough, they would have that money for them to fix those problems without coming to us to increase tariffs.
So the first thing is, if you say efficient, what do we mean? We mean using less inputs to produce.
People are stealing electricity, water, illegal, all of these things are there. They are not even collecting what they are supposed to be collecting. If you had that, you wouldn't come back to us with a proposal.
So, as I said, those are challenges within the sector, and it's actually the responsibility of all the stakeholders to resolve, especially power theft or commercial losses that accrue to the utilities. And these are challenges that I think most of them, the various investment proposals that have been granted to the utilities, if they are allowed to go through the tariff, the utilities have committed that they will use those revenues to actually improve, to ensure that they reduce their commercial losses, including power theft.
Again, let me ask you one more before I come to the panel. You're saying they have promised, but this is not the first time they will be promising us.
Yes.
The concern is that PURC seems to be pushing for the demands of utility providers rather than looking at what the Ghanaians, the consumers, are supposed to be getting at the end of the day.
No, so PURC, as per Act 538, I think Section 17, we are having the mandate to protect the interests of the Ghanaian consumer, and then the various utilities, as well as the interests of investors, right? So what we are doing is actually more of protecting the interests of the Ghanaian consumer. The first thing is to ensure that the lights are on. And keeping the lights on, it requires a lot of investment, and then we have to balance that need of the Ghanaian consumer and then the investor and also the utility providers, ensuring that the services are continuously provided for the Ghanaian consumer to benefit, for industries to benefit from constant, stable power. Now we are balancing the issue of cost, and cost is at the heart of the whole discussion, and that's where we are. The Ghanaian consumer is actually much more protected and much more taken care of.
But the problem is that you're asking, you're kind of pushing the need of of the service providers, as in utility providers, before fixing the challenge?
No, so as I said, these are tariff proposals. Tariff proposals, we are now going through the round of stakeholder engagement. So we'll be talking to all the major stakeholders. Afterwards, we'll be going around the country, every region, letting the utilities make presentations of their various services, and the Ghanaian consumer will criticize them, ask the utilities all the various questions that they need to ask and know about, like you are doing now. I mean, the conversation you have just started, and you're also taking charge to actually ask and hold the utility providers and ask PURC accountable and responsible for the whole process, and that's what we are doing. I
want to come to you, Mr. Jantua, because you're an energy expert, and I just talked about even your being chairman of that AGI important sector there, 224% for electricity, 280% for water as the demand from these two companies. What do you think?
Good morning to fellow Ghanaians. Good morning to... Sorry, see, I've been coming in the morning.
It's
good
all
evening.
right.
Good evening to our fellow viewers, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Beatrice, it's a simple question for me. I don't want to go into figures. The utility companies, are they making profit? Gridco, ECG, Netco, Ghana Gas. I was at the encounter with the CSOs the other day. Are they making profit? What is the expenditure? If you have expenditure and you have profit, you don't ask for too much tariff. No, be so? So are they making profit? I don't remember the last time Netco made a profit. Dr. Asante will be able to tell me. Don't remember. So if there's constant loss with our utilities, what is causing the loss? Because we seem to be chasing our tails all the time with regards to finding the wherewithal to make our utilities work. So are they making profit?
But who should answer that question? Shouldn't it be them?
For me, that's the challenge. What is causing them not to make profit? What are the reasons that cause them not to make profit? One of the reasons is collection. At the encounter with CSOs, when Netco came to give their presentation, and I think I asked the question whether they've made profit. And one of the things they said to us was that even sometimes going into areas to collect monies that are owed them can be dangerous, because sometimes they get attacked by us Ghanaians who are using the electricity. So it is a challenge. And for me, so far as I can see, we are part and parcel of the problem. Why would we want to steal electricity? For what reason? Does it help the utility? It doesn't. And why would the utility not go collect the revenue that is owed them? And within the utility itself, there are some engineers and people in there who also don't help. And so it's an entire cocktail of issues that need to be taken one by one. And hopefully, when it's taken one by one, we find solutions to it. We can enforce, the regulator can enforce to make sure that things are happening. Are we not chasing our tails? Have we not been here before? Have we not discussed this before? Every year, any new government comes, old government comes, we are discussing the same thing. When do we solve the problem? And the problem can only be solved with money and good regulation and good monitoring. So let's say we give them the monies that they're looking for. Who is going to monitor to make sure that they are using the monies for what it is meant for? And who is going to report to us constantly to make sure that they are doing the right thing? And these are some of the challenges we face so far as I can see.
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying that the utility companies have a part to play that perhaps they have failed at, and Ghanaians are also responsible for the problems we are finding ourselves.
We all have the part to play, and we don't seem to be playing that part, unfortunately.
We don't seem to be playing that part.
Because the percentage that they are asking, it must be accumulative.
Yes, it's supposed to be between 2025 and 2029.
It must be accumulative. But should it be so? If they are making good profits, should it be so? Yes, they might ask for tariff adjustments, but not at this rate. The water company, are we talking water too?
Yes.
280. What is creating some of the pollution of the water?
The answer is very obvious.
Yes. Well, there are other things that create pollution, but the major one is galamsey, right? I have said, and maybe I'll be crucified for saying it, but I think it's necessary that we say it. I learned at the encounter that potable water is life. For me, I used to say water is life. But they're saying potable water is life. And potable water is water that is treated. Before potable water can be treated, you have water that you need to treat. So that is where I take my premise from. If it happens that we don't give them the tariff they're asking for, and before we give them that tariff, I believe PURC should go into it nitty-gritty, fine-tooth comb, step by step, figure by figure, to see whether what they're asking for is realistic. Now, once that is done, we should be able to tell the percentage of pollutants of our water bodies. If it so happens that galamsey is part and parcel, and it is part and parcel of the pollution because fresh water is being polluted with chemicals because of galamsey. And it so happens that we've now set up a gold board. They are buying gold, yes? And I believe from what the president said, there is some degree of galamsey gold in the gold they are buying. We made $6 billion from the setup of gold board to now. And for me, it's specific to water, nothing else, water, because we need water to live. We need water to do everything. It so happens that water doesn't flow in your house. Do you know what would happen to your toilets? Do you know what would happen to even just brushing your teeth, just bath? It is crucial. So I suggest, and I will suggest, that if Cocoa Gold Board is making these monies, and remember, the Bank of Ghana give the Gold Board cedis to buy the gold. The gold is bought in dollars and the money goes back to the Bank of Ghana. A certain percentage of that profit should go to purify the water, should be given to the water company to purify. But however, that money should be policed like nobody else's business.
Well,
to make sure that it is used for what it is meant for.
Fortunately, the PURC is here, and I'll come back to you after I've spoken to Doc Asante here. But I know that the PURC did a good job with that price waterfall mechanism, telling us that ECG was not giving the people, you know, what they needed, all the other stakeholders in the line. I don't know of monitoring, you know, the kind of monies that are supposed to be collected, and even this one that they are asking for, how it will be used. So I'm sure, Doc, you'll be able to...
What is the reasons that have been given for this increase in the tariff? What's the reason?
One of the reasons is to pay debt, which will go into it.
To pay debt?
Yes.
And for the water, one of the reasons is high pollution of our water bodies.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And so how do we solve that one?
We'll go into all of that, but I want to get your thoughts, Dr. Nida Kwasante. What has been said so far? Where do you stand on the percentage being proposed, or which has been proposed, both by the water company and the electricity company of Ghana, before we go to our Zoom guest?
Good evening also to all of you and to the listeners on screen. I think there are two ways to look at it. The utilities are asking for an increase. Is it that they need it to pay the cost that they have, or is it that they need or they want the money just so that they can spend on things that they don't really need? So the first thing is to find out the genuineness of those costs. And Kwame mentioned that the proposal will need to be scrutinized, and I believe PURC will be doing that. Yes. After they've heard from everybody else, they would go inside and look at it line by line to make sure that these things they are asking for are prudent, are necessary, are efficient. So that will be done. I think it's premature to start shouting that it's too much or it's too little. We don't know. I mean, there are lots of things that are going to getting us electricity, there are lots of things that are going to getting us water. If those costs, I doubt that they are all genuine, but if those costs being 200% or 280% were genuine, then we'd have to pay it. Because if we don't pay it in the tariff, we'll pay it somewhere else.
So if you say you doubt they are genuine, where do you think those, the ones that probably they've added will be going to?
So I understand Ghana Water is saying, for instance, part of the reason they're asking for 280 is that government is asking them to pay for debts that government has on its books that have been unlent.
Legacy debts.
Legacy debts, essentially, but these are debts that government sourced funds to build infrastructure for water company, and they have not paid it back. So government is saying it was for you, so you should pay it. And Ghana Water will then say, okay, if we should pay, then we'll pass it through the tariff. Both are justified, but I'm sure government will agree that the 280% is not something they want to have on their watch. So I'm sure an arrangement can be made for those costs to be deferred once again, because they happened 4 years ago and they deferred it. They may need to defer it again. So that will take the cost down somewhat. By how much, I don't know. ECG, on the other hand, has, in my view, unreasonably increased some of its costs. And some of those costs, therefore, are not genuine or should not be passed on. There are one or two things that I noticed, but once PURC looks at it, they'll find out that maybe it's not 180, maybe it's only 30%. I don't know.
Do you feel that PURC has failed at getting utility providers to get us what we need, instead of always coming to tell us that we need to pay more before they fix the problem?
You see, we should separate the problem fixing from sustaining a business. If you are buying power that is sold to you essentially in foreign exchange, if the exchange rate changes, whether they are efficient or they are inefficient, the tariff will have to go up. We are paying for petrol prices. I'm told in the next window it's supposed to go up. The petrol stations themselves are choosing not to raise it because of competition. But if they had been raising it, we say that because they're inefficient, we won't pay. We all want petrol for our cars. So if that is the price, we'll pay. We may shout, but we will pay. I think we should take the same approach with electricity. I'm not saying we should like it. I'm not saying we should keep quiet and pay. But we should pay. And then look at what they are doing. And if we can find containers of things that have been bought that shouldn't have been bought, then we should hold whoever is the chief executive or on the board of that company for doing things that they shouldn't have done and passing the cost to us.
And so we do have Mr. Beatrice Adu as well as Dr. George Donfe on. But very briefly, before I go to them, Agama Foley Jacob, because you say we should pay the realistic tariff.
Yes.
And you haven't spoken about the challenge in terms of inefficiencies. He is saying my electricity meter not working. About 6 months ago, I reported. Nothing was done till now. This same thing is happening all over the country. People's line being cut because they didn't pay for. Okay, so he's just basically saying and accusing the bosses of misusing the money, or the funds. But the point he's making is that he had issue with his meter for 6 months. He reported. He even went ahead and reported, and nothing was done.
So we should deal with that. I'm not saying we shouldn't deal with it, but it's not an either or. It's both. We have to pay the tariff, and we have to deal with that. If there's somebody reported to, if there's a district manager who is in charge, something should happen to that district manager.
Heads must rule.
Yes, if that is the case, or if he can find who was responsible for making this complaint not be acted on. But we can't accept that, oh, this is Ghana. We should pay, but we should also deal with the person who is not doing their job.
Two-edged sword. I'm coming to you, Mr. Adumaku Kwesi, Director, West Africa Regional Center, CAT International. I'm just wondering what you have picked as regards the consumer perspective, the sentiment, really.
Good evening to your viewers. This notice of increase has come as a surprise with the quantum that the utility companies are asking for. If, of course, we know that this quantum is not a single transaction, that will be spread over a period of 5 years. But the fact of the matter is that every 4 to 5 years, the PURC receives proposal from utility companies, and they come with a huge request for tariff upward revision. And PURC, after consulting various stakeholders, would agree and then maybe reduce what they are looking for based upon the market needs. But one thing that consumers are also concerned about is that these proposals are not approved in vacuum. They are approved based upon KPIs that, look, we want to be able to do this, we want to be able to do that. And these companies, they take the money, the tariff is approved, and yet consumers don't see any improvement in the, whether in water or electricity. Electricity, of course, let me admit that electricity has improved, but water, I mean, those who used to get water 3 times a week now get it once in a day, and yet they keep on paying more. And PURC is also not able to even let the public know the KPI that is set for these utility companies before approving the, and then also doing an ex-post evaluation and publishing to see that these things have been were met. For example, we know that ECG went to ask for some money, and we don't know whether that part of the money was what were used to procure containers that found themselves in someone's warehouse and they were being sold as a scrap. I think that PURC needs to be very tough on the producers, the power. Especially not those who are producing, but rather those service companies. That is the ECG. And if PURC becomes more like a conduit for these companies to use to get adjustment that they don't necessarily need, then it's a problem. And for me, I think I have some issues with PURC. When you look at the last tariff review, for example, we know that one of the variables that is used for adjusting power tariff is the rate of inflation as well as the exchange rate to the dollar. Last quarter, PURC projected inflation to be around 20.6. At that time, the inflation for, I think, May was even 18. And knowing where the inflation was trending down, PURC projected a higher. I don't know who taught the commissioner's mathematics. There was a huge mathematical flaw in the inflation rate that was used even to calculate. And we are asking ourselves whether PURC is there for the interest of the utility companies or the interest of the consumers. And so consumers are beginning to their faith and trust in PURC is beginning to wane. And we want PURC to use this review to show that PURC is actually an independent regulator and that PURC will stand up to the power companies and the ECG, and that they will only give to them what they need, not just because they have come. So when you look at the last quarter, at the time PURC projected 20.6 as inflation rate for determining the tariff. Now, last month, Statistical Service said the inflation rate was less than 11.5. So it means that Ghanaians are overpaying electricity for this third quarter, and nobody is talking about it. The media is, and even let me also say that even the media, you're one of the most listened program for TV3 and even Joy is the Saturday program, and that program is used to discuss politics and not matters that affect the economy or consumers. I think that we need more space and advocacy to be able to expose what is happening within the power sector, because if PURC would allow itself to do this, I mean, in examination, why would you project inflation to be 20.6 when in actual sense, it's supposed to have, even if they have used a moving average, they should have gotten less than 13. But yet PURC projected 20.6. And I think that they need to go back and even refund the excess payment that consumers made as a result of their wrongful calculation.
Wrongful calculation. Fortunately, we have the Executive Secretary of the PURC with us, Dr. Suleiman. He will have the opportunity to answer that question. But I want to come to you, Dr. George Domfe. If you've been listening into the conversation, I'm sure you've heard the Executive Secretary of the PURC explaining why they thought that they needed to consider that proposal and even have consultations on it from both Electricity Company of Ghana and the Ghana Water Company Limited. And I'm sure you've also might have heard the submissions of the two gentlemen on the panel. Where do you stand on the 224% by the Electricity Company of Ghana and also 280 for the Ghana Water Company Limited?
Yeah, my sister, thank you very much. And a very good evening to my co-panelists and also viewers as well. Unfortunately, I didn't join in on time, and so apart from the last speaker, I didn't hear what others have said. Yeah, but if you permit me, I will quickly add my voice. I'm not too sure whether maybe what I'm going to say has already been said. Of course, we are educating the public on some of these things, so it is important that even if it is said, I also add my voice to it. This issue, as an economist, I look at it as an issue. We have to be very careful when we are dealing with it because it has both positive and negative. Some people may not want ECG and Ghana Water to increase obvious reasons. Maybe I share their sentiments. But what about if they also don't increase the tariffs at all? If they don't increase the tariffs at all, these are the arguments that others have also raised in favor, which I support as an economist. Rising cost of operations. I don't know what has been happening to our city, especially many months we saw going dollar around for say cities, 2017 or 2021. $1 was going around 6 cities, 4 to 6 cities. And before we could start, just one particular year, 2022, $1 inter-exchange rate went over 50 cities. And that affected the cost of operation for PG and Ghana Water. Because of the inputs, I'm talking about the chemicals and all the other inputs, they import. So if you have lost so much value in 2022, then it means there was a problem. The companies were struggling. And we also, 2022, 2023, 2024, the tariffs, some of the years when increased, those years that increased, an increment didn't match the rising cost of application. And so I understand, EC and Ghana, they are all struggling. I've been told of how Galamsey raised the utility of the water, through Galamsey, stability of the water has gone up, and it means that you need more. If we want to give consumers clean water, we need to spend more. And most of what they use to clean the water, we don't produce them here. We always produce, we always sell them. And if the is depreciating, I can understand the rising cost of operation. Another issue had to do with the macroeconomic pressures. Apart from exchange rate, we also have inflation of water, ECG, they have their also increase salaries of their workers. And so if the past few years the economy was doing well, what is that they have to raise salaries of their workers when not saving so much. And so TD is really absurd. So Ghana Water Company need to invest in rehabilitate infrastructure. That's also another thing. we have been told about how obsolete some of transmission lines are, and that is also even affecting efficiency.
So, Doc, forgive me.
See, the company.
I just wanted to get in summary the point you're making, that having enumerated all these challenges and the situation on the ground, that's in the reality, you think that these proposals from these utility providers are realistic? Is that what you're saying in summary?
Yeah, so I have said that economically it is justified that we need to in their tariffs. I will also quickly say that the 250, 40, and 280, they are too much. I think we've heard this before. Up to 3 years ago, the similar proposals, and the government of the day didn't agree. So I'm struggling to see whether PURC is going to allow to pass through this. And in fact, if they allow, it is also going to cause a lot of problems. Let me quickly say that around the year 2014, I was part of a team that did it not only in Ghana, but in Uganda and Kenya. It was sponsored by IDRC, and the findings, were very, very, very bad. We have been talking about job creation. One of the reasons why Ghanaian companies have been struggling to create jobs, to expand and create jobs, is a high cost of energy. Three are suffering, but I think Ghana's one was the highest. Cost of energy is one of the reasons why companies have been collapsing. And from our study, we saw that if you set up 10 companies today, in the next 10 years, only about 4 of them will be surviving. And those that survive have serious political affiliation, And job creation is a problem. I feel bad when sometimes my students have taught 15 years and they are still running around for jobs, And so if I speak with you, if you meet an AGI or any other manufacturer in this country and you ask them the main problem that they have, it is with electricity. Even though ECG thinks that they are not paying the market price, if the little that they are paying, it is having adverse consequences on productivity and expansion. And that's why they are not creating jobs. If these tariffs come and we push it on the firms, most of the firms I cannot stand it.
So,
250, even 100%, I don't think.
Doc, let me ask you.
I don't think the firms can stand it.
Let me ask you this briefly, and I'll come to the panel. And if you could answer this very briefly for us. One of the points that Mr. Jantua raised, for instance, was, okay, you probably need the money, and we're going to consider giving you a percentage. But how does the PURC ensure that the monies that are going to be approved in terms of the tariff adjustment are used for the purposes for which they are asking for? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, so we are talking about efficiency, and over the years, we have seen that these are utility providing companies haven't been too efficient. Yeah, they have a very bad of inefficiency, and therefore, I think I can understand the concerns. So, if we pay so much, is it that they will be more efficient? Because once they are more efficient, I'm even sure it will even bring down some of the, the tariffs that they are talking about, so they talk about transmission losses that ECG has always been, talking about. And so and that's part of the reason why there's this need to increase the tariff. And if you are increasing the tariffs to cover somebody's inefficiency, then you don't think, you don't expect any good thing to come out of it. And so really, this is a very difficult problem that must be resolved cost, but we have to do it. We have to tread cautious, because if we don't tread cautiously, we will end up killing all the firms, the few ones that we have. And if we kill firms, see the depreciation also increase, because in that it's to heighten or deepen or import.
I'll come back to you, Dr. Domfe, and your line has been breaking since. If you can reposition yourself or have a look at it so that we can have a smoother conversation because of your line. I'm coming to you, Dr. Suleiman, and I'm coming to you with some statements made by our viewers. Opoku, Patrick Opoku on YouTube says, good evening. Come to Ashaiman. The illegal connections of light is unimaginable. And then he says the problem of these utilities are the operators who refuse to collect their money. Some of the workers also conniving with consumers. There's Nicolas Olenu who says the Ghana Water Company must urgently address the significant water losses occurring along distribution lines before the water even reaches consumers' meters. This wastage is costing the nation. And then he says, if not tackled, it may lead to additional tariff burdens on Ghanaians. Proactive measures are needed to safeguard both resources and public from unnecessary costs. There's Justice Ayariga who says, Massa, did you use that space judiciously during Akufo-Addo's time? Okay, I don't know who you're referring to. And then they said the same ECG officers who connected people for illegal connections are the ones taking money and reconnecting them if the problem is fixed. I want to read two more because it is in line with how you will ensure that as much as you're bringing us these proposals, you're also ensuring that these companies are effective. Amos James on Facebook says the PRC Executive Secretary seems to be rather defending the utility service providers. What does he say about the over-importation of inputs that they don't use? So that's a point, Doc, you made earlier. How do you respond to these in terms of ensuring efficiency and value for money?
Thank you, Beatrice. You can see the work of the regulator is not easy at all. Because consumers, you are supposed to ensure that the lights are on, and stable power is not cheap, I would say. It is expensive to actually keep our lights on. And then if the lights are also off, I'm sure the rampage will be far, far, far more than the conversation now, because you know the effects of doomsday or lights out on even governments. So PURC is doing much to actually ensure the interests of the consumer is protected. We ensure that the utilities at all times, we monitor the activities to ensure that the lights, that's quality of service is there. First of all, if you wake up and the lights, you have lights, it means that PURC is doing its work, because we are the ones monitoring the various utilities to ensure that anytime there are outages, they need to work on them and ensure that the power is restored as soon as possible. And it's the same for water. We have various challenges within the value chain, and we are working so hard to ensure that the various utilities keep water flowing and keep the lights on. I mean, with the various investments they've made, I have made a commitment to myself, and I'm sure the Commission we are all working so hard to ensure that the various investments that we have approved for the utilities so far, I mean, as I said, there are investment proposals that we've looked at and have approved. We are going to ensure that the utilities, we monitor and ensure that they invest the monies that are approved or given to them in those various projects.
How are you going to monitor?
So it's actually within a broader framework of, first of all, the proposals you've made, like, so we actually wanted to itemize all of them on our website, digitalize them, and as well as every other month or 2 months, 3 months, we actually monitor the status of the various projects, go on ground ourselves to ensure that the projects are either on ground, completed, or ongoing. In fact, most of the projects that we've accepted are projects that are yet to start. So if they are starting, the utilities need to inform us, let us know that this project is about to start. We capture it, we put our men on the ground to monitor the progress of it, wherever it has gotten to, and its subsequent impact on the provision of quality of service to the consumer.
So for instance, in terms of quality of equipment,
yes,
how are you going to monitor that if they say that they are buying, let's say, new transmission lines for $100,000, they are actually using the $100,000 to buy the transmission lines, the quality ones, instead of using $50,000, cutting, you know, just having shortcuts and still getting the transmission lines, but not what you need. How are you going to monitor that?
So let's not forget that the various utilities are also working within the broader framework of Ghana, right? Because we have procurement laws that ECG cannot just go ahead and procure any item without going through the required procurement
But
laws.
we were here when they over-procured and also didn't pay
Yes,
the waterfall mechanism. We're here.
Yes,
PURC was here.
So they've been some tremendous and drastic change since the beginning of the year in the activities of the various utilities from both the perspective of PURC and the various utilities as well. I mean, the over-procurement and some of the things that happened getting to the close of 2024 and the beginning of 2024, I mean, we may not be seeing most of them again because of the new reset that we are all looking at. We want to ensure that the various utilities are held accountable and responsible for every investment that the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission approves for them. And I can assure you that going forward, there will be limited over-procurement, especially with those that have been approved recently. And the regulator, I can assure you, is taking full responsibility for most of the investments that have been approved. And I can assure you, it will be extremely difficult for ECG or any of the other utilities to go ahead and procure anything that, or any items that have not been part of the investment proposals that they've submitted to the Commission.
Are you going to sack or terminate those who cause infractions or enable infractions like Dr. Asante proposed?
So it's more or less, it's a commission. We have a group of commissioners that are looking at the various processes, and I'm sure that all the commissioners want to be, as I said, I don't want to be accountable for all the decisions that they are making and all the proposals that they will be giving to the various utilities. And as the Executive Secretary, I will be supporting the Commission to ensure that we monitor the various investments that we've approved for the utilities. And it's just maintaining some discipline and ensuring that they don't overspend above the investment proposals or the investments that have been given. And then they also use the various proposals that have been given for the needed services that are required to ensure that the consumer is given the right quality of service.
Doc, you haven't answered the question. Are you going to recommend the termination of contract of individuals who will enable infractions, irrespective of the laws that we have? So
now, because we've just approved the investment, it will be very difficult for any contract to be awarded on those investments without the utilities making reference or coming back to the utility and PURC for further conversations on the way forward. I
want to come to you, Dr. Asante, but I want to come to you with some more comments. Amos says that I love the first gentleman who spoke via Zoom. He's standing for the poor Ghanaian. There's
Beatrice,
also...
I don't know whether, if I can, the inflation comment that was made by CAT.
Please, you can respond to that.
So because
briefly,
we have internally a very robust mechanism at PURC that looks at all the various macroeconomic factors when making a quarterly tariff adjustment. And I can assure CAT that PURC has considered most of the various variables at all times, and we are robust enough that we do our maths extremely well and to come out with any quarterly tariff adjustment without any due consideration to any even errors.
Adam says, I think PURC should try to set up station stores with personnel advantage areas across the nation with continuous sensitization on the people to pay at ease. The ordinary citizens of Ghana should not continue to be bearing the consequences. I'll read one more before I come to you, Dr. Asante. Boogeyman says, we ask that our president declare a state of emergency. He automatically declines our request, and he and his team are taxing us more on utility tariffs. This is a serious sugar coat, very waterproof, but thanks TV3, okay, I think I saw some flashes. Okay, so that's a long message. Hopefully we're able to finish that. But Doc, what do you say, and the way forward, really what we need to do?
I mean, the way forward is, there are some things we've been avoiding doing. I mean, we've had some problems with the inefficiencies for a long time. We've talked about them, we've charged people, we've come with new initiatives. But the sad fact is that we are generally avoiding the problem. People are stealing power. You can't solve that by installing meters. You can't solve that by spending big money on some big project to do some smart metering. The only way theft is stopped is by going around and finding people who have stolen power and dealing with them. Unfortunately, ECG has tended to do stunt events. 1 week, we all hear on the media, ECG is going and doing. You hear it for a week, you hear it for 2 weeks, and then back to business as usual. But they have people who have been employed who that is their job 24/7, every single day that they go to work. Their job is to protect the revenue of ECG. Unfortunately, we all look elsewhere. That department is poorly resourced. That department, there's very little focus on it. I'm sure it should improve. But what I find sad is that in ECG's tariff proposal, there is not one single thing that addresses the losses that we are talking about. They talk about a lot of investment, but none of the things they are talking about addresses the losses.
But we know that ECG, some of the reasons they've had losses is because of the obsolete equipment. By the time it gets to
It is a
wherever.
small, you see, commercial loss, they themselves say is about 17%, and the technical is 9%. But that 9%, they will spend plenty of money to try and fix that 9. And that 9 is just a number they've picked out of the sky.
You don't believe it?
It's possible, but yeah. The main thing is that we know people are stealing power. That is heading towards about 20%. You can't spend 90% of your budget fighting 9% and leave the 20% untouched. For years, we have seen this problem. We are not dealing with it. People are complaining about the inefficiency, and it has to be addressed. I say we need to pay for the increased cost, but we should also deal with that.
We should also deal with that. I'll have to take that as your final word, Mr. Jantra, your final word, and I'll take 2 final words from the gentleman, Bazoum.
Are we paying realistic tariffs?
We've always said that we are not.
Are we? I find it difficult. And if it's a private company and you go to the bank and ask for money and you have huge debts on your books, will the bank give you the money? They won't. And I expected at the CSO encounter, I expected all the utilities to look at how do we pay for the debts that we have. That is a huge elephant in the room that we are not addressing. Let's see how we pay for the debts, even if it's over a certain duration of time. And not let us saddle that debt with government, because government doesn't have the money. It's clear. They don't have the money. So the responsibility is both on the utilities and the people.
Both on the utilities and the people, Ghanaians. I'm coming to you, Dr. George Domfe. In 30 seconds, if you can give us your final word, and I'll take that of Mr. Pierre Adomakun.
Yeah, sorry, please.
30 seconds, sir.
Please.
Yes, sir. If you can tell us your final word in 30 seconds. We've run out of time. Please.
Oh, okay. So my final word is that we have to tread cautiously in dealing with this particular situation, because really, I mean, it is very true that the service providers need more money, but then care is not taken. In trying to more money to be efficient, they will have trying, things for now. Really talking about, the cost of doing business in Ghana. The movement set tariffs up to affect the cost of doing business in Ghana, and that has adverse consequences. Job creation, adverse consequences for Ghana as a country, whether or not we want to, all our government products are centered on how to be import independent.
Indeed.
Movement increase cost production, also deepen that situation that we are trying to run away from.
Indeed. And
import independent. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Doc. I will have to come to you again, just 30 seconds, because there's a comment for you. It says, if I correctly, that's coming from Kwesi Kofi. If I correctly heard the doctor, he was saying that the cost of utilities has collapsed many companies. So what will this huge increase cause? 80% of the meters are prepaid. How did we even get here? If you can answer that, plus your final words in about, let's say, 45 seconds because of the question.
So the Ghanaian consumer is the ultimate king in the power utility sector. The whole sector is to serve the interests of the Ghanaian consumer, to keep the lights on and work so hard to ensure that the utilities are also accountable and ensure that the various proposals or investments that we've given them, they're able to use them judiciously for the interests of the Ghanaian consumer. So all the stakeholders are working to ensure that the power is stable and the cost is reasonable for them to pay.
And the cost is reasonable for them to pay. Thank you very much, Executive Secretary of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, Dr. Shafiq Suleiman. Thank you for joining us on Agenda. Of course, we've had Dr. Nida Asante as well, former commissioner at the PURC and energy consultant. Immediate on my left as well, Mr. Kwame Jantua, who is energy expert and also chairman of the energy, sector of the Association of Ghana Industries. We've had a video call with us, Dr. George Domfe, development economist, as well as Mr. Beatrice Adu. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on Agenda tonight. Join us again next week. My name is Beatrice Adu. Enjoy the rest of your evening.